This is a test of the audio system.
it.
So now it fixed your name, and then
As soon as I wipe out video, it'll do that.
Yep, down there. Once you start that, let me get out of here, and then you should have your screen that you selected.
Okay, and this is it, I promise. The final question, because this to me is one of the biggest reasons this is a hard issue to do in a fiscal session, is it is very complex. Where I'm really confused here is we passed a bill through this body and through the House, signed into law, that had no rape and incest exception in it. First time.
I'm checking off. Yes. I don't have to do anything. I don't tell me that it's like.
Okay.
She has a silence button. Clear everyone. I think that shuts it
We
down.
had about 4 or 5 in my session.
I've never sat in this chair. I don't have the power of the chairman, but I think that's how it works. And I've never seen the chairman. I think clear just cleans all the backside. And I think clear means it shuts them all off and like leaves you on. Chairman has to control this meeting. I've not seen it used in the 2.5 years I've been here, but I've seen it a couple times at mine.
Okay. No, you're good. Yeah. Okay, so.
Well, good afternoon. We're going to hold for about a minute and a half to allow everyone to kind of take their seats, and then we'll begin the meeting. So those of you that are joining us by Zoom, if you'll be patient, we'll open the meeting at 3:05. Thank you. Well, again, good afternoon to everyone. Nice to see all of you here. Welcome to the initial meeting of the Arkansas Energy Resources Council. And I really do appreciate all the participation we have here today in the room, as well as some of the members joining us through our Zoom technology. We do, I want to also extend my appreciation to Buddy Hastings, who sits here on my right with the Arkansas Electric Cooperative, who has generously allowed us to use this fantastic facility today for this meeting. So I'm going to ask Ken, I'm going to turn this mic over to him briefly to give us any specific instructions for those of us here in the building, to make us aware of any emergency procedures they have in place for your protection.
All right, good afternoon. Definitely we want to be good hosts today, and your safety is utmost of importance to us. We do not have any scheduled fire drills, so if a fire alarm goes off, we would exit out of here and we would go muster right out in the front parking lot. And then we would probably take a muster to make sure we got everybody. We're not expecting any other severe storms or inclement weather, but should there be a tornado, we would leave here and then we'd go down these hallways, and there's an interior section there we would go to because there's a lot of glass here and a lot of glass in the lobby. We wouldn't want to have flying glass get us. The restrooms, if you go right out the back, just to the edges of the lobby, there are restrooms, and this doorway here that's still open is kind of there's coffee, there's drinks in there. Everyone got a bottle of water, but if you want something of higher octane with some caffeine in it, it's in there. I believe there's snacks set out in there. I would be shocked if there aren't. It's a co-op, and it's food is a part of our meetings. So help yourselves to that. We want to be good hosts today. Also, a little bit about the technology. Since there are people online, you can see that my light turned red up here. There's a button near each of your microphones. If you push that, it'll turn your mic red, so the secretary will know that you want to speak. She does have the power to clear all of you if she wants, and I've shown her she has the power of God up here with the button. I've not seen it used in my 2 years in the co-op, but she could use it today. And it's important to use that when you speak, just because even in here, if we can hear you, the people online will not be able to hear you if you don't speak into the mic, just the way the technology works. And so it's good for the secretary to know who wants to speak, and it's really good for the people online to be able to hear what's being said. And with that, we just welcome you here to Arkansas Electric and look forward to a good meeting today.
It is about like driving an airplane up here. So no, I'm teasing. It's not that. It's only 3 buttons. It might be a little dangerous if it was more, but I appreciate that. And I do like this power, and I think we'll take this technology back to our building in the future potentially. But anyway, but we don't have that privilege of knowing when people are going to speak or what or any ability to control that. But for those of you on Zoom, if you'll make us aware. Also, if anyone has a personal emergency, I know we've got several people sitting in the back of the room. Judy Branscombe, if you want to wave your hand, let her or Beth Thompson know, and they will get you the proper assistance if for some reason you do need assistance while you're here during the meeting. So, but at this time, I really wanted to take a moment to welcome all the committee members, who have joined us. And we also appreciate those that we have sitting in the audience. I guess we've got some public participation, some guests in the room. Those are not clearly identified to me, so I won't be able to introduce you individually, but thank you for being here. Also, this is being live streamed through Arcan, which is a PBS, through the PBS channel, and also on the Arkansas Department of Energy and Environment's YouTube channel. So anyone that would be interested in watching this or watching a video tape of it later, it should be available for access there. I do want to I wanted to recognize that I believe Chris Fletcher, who is our liaison with the governor's office, hopes to be able to join the discussion or meeting through Zoom at some point in the process. So I wanted to recognize him and acknowledge his efforts and coordination on this council. He's done a fantastic job, I know. So I have a number. Also, I'll take privilege of the chair to express my appreciation to the staff that have put this meeting together. We've had folks prepare materials and obviously work to coordinate on the facility. You've hopefully received the adequate notices and agendas that we offered. Donnelly Davis is our department's chief of communications, is in the room. I don't know, Donnelly, I think she's back there. There she meeting with this as well as with the media. If you have any media questions or inquiry following this discussion and you would like to let us know, that would be great, just so that we all stay on the same page when we're working with the press. But feel free to do whatever. If you prefer that she answers questions instead of you, that's fine too, to deliver those questions over to her. So we're happy to have that communication go on. Other team members that have been working on this, well, there's a list of them. I won't go through the full, but we have a great communications team, and I know Troy Deal is up in some control room that you have. I don't know. They even have a control room. I think that's kind of cool. And Beth Thompson, as I mentioned, in the back. So we have some technical or support staff that are actually supporting the committee. Dan Pilkington is in the back. You may want to get to know him. He's one of our energy attorneys. And Tricia Treese actually comes out of our DEQ division, air quality planning, but she is supporting the committee. They are fantastic note takers and report preparers, so they will be paying attention to the words that are stated and document that. They should be familiar faces to some of you if you participated in our resources planning task force that was completed in 2021. They worked with the members of that task force to capture recommendations and to prepare an excellent report that was received by the governor. And I'm glad to know that I'm pleased to announce that they have agreed to support this council, but because I know there'll be tremendous help to all of you. We also have Andrea Hopkins, our Deputy Chief Administrator for our E&E Energy and Mineral Resources Division, supporting the effort too. So I think we'll be well taken care of. I wanted to express my appreciation also to those of you that were part of the Energy Resources Planning Task Force. And if you're not familiar with that, that was convened by the governor in 2021 in the aftermath of the I'm not sure what that was, but a summary report to the governor was made available, and it is available still, and we'll provide that as a resource to all the members. It's a real good starting point for this council because it really tells us what is going on in our energy resource markets, but also in the implementation of resources and how those are managed, particularly during an inclement weather situation. So the formation of this Energy Resources Council was a key recommendation of the task force, and I am pleased that the governor acted quickly to establish a more durable form of communication among all the parties here. So as recognized in the executive order, which you should have in front of you, the Energy Resources Council and your efforts are going to be significant to Arkansas as we work together to address vulnerabilities in critical energy resources in Arkansas and the region. The recommendation, as I said, was put forth to the governor to establish this council. And really the intent of the council is to facilitate technical and policy discussion among regulators, which we have some on the committee, and also our energy stakeholders. And we appreciate all of you that are here. The discussions are directed to occur at least on an annual basis, if not more frequently as needed, to develop and maintain educational materials on best practices regarding particularly preparedness for extreme weather events, but also communication in advance and during the events that may disrupt the supply of critical energy resources. As we know, we were at a near risk point back in February. The committee has specifically, though, been formed to act as a forum, I believe, for stakeholders and regulators to share and learn from each other. And our invited guests, as the committee or council chooses to invite folks such as neighboring states and their experiences looking at things. It's also to increase citizen awareness of the preparations and the specific resources that will help position Arkansas to an improved state of readiness in the future. So we just look forward to that discussion. So really to begin this first meeting, which is really an initial meeting, we identified on the agenda the next item where I would like to go around and let each council member introduce themselves and then take a brief I would say, I was going to say 3 to 5, but maybe 1 to 2 minutes to update or tell us something. If there's anything significant that your organization or you would like to share with us about something y'all have done since February that would be meaningful to this group, we'll have opportunity to get into the details in the future conversations, but just let us know, kind of update of where you are and where you believe we've led Arkansas to since last February. I'm going to start. Again, I guess I didn't formally introduce myself. I'm Becky Keogh. I'm the Department Secretary for Energy and Environment. And I'm pleased to also introduce 2 other individuals that are supporting me at the department in my role as chair and are here participating, at least one in person and one in Zoom. I wanted to first recognize Larry Bingle. He's on Zoom. He is the Chief Administrator for E&E's Division of Energy and Mineral Resources. And he also serves as the Director of Oil and Gas Commission. Many of you know him in that capacity. But I also have introduced Shane Corey in the back row over there. He is our Chief Counsel for E&E and also serves as the Assistant Director of the Oil and Gas Commission. But we're happy to have both of them participate. They've been excellent resources in our E&E department. And I anticipate we'll assume delegation of certain duties of the chair in this forum going forward. So I want you to know them well. And at this time, though, I want to turn to the members and get your comments. So I don't know exactly the way to follow, but we could start here and move. Is that okay if we just go around the room? And do we have everyone on I guess we have everyone with a placard that's present, and then we'll switch over to you guys on Zoom. If that's okay, if those on you in Zoom will be patient, we'll get to you too. So with that, I'll turn it to you. Thank you.
Well, somebody's got to be first.
Remember
right?
to hit the mic, right? So.
Yeah, I'm Buddy Haston. I'm the CEO of Arkansas Electric Cooperative. I've been here since 2019. So right after getting here, COVID hit. And then right after that, the storm Uri hit. So I'm much like Jonah. So if another thing hits, they'll probably throw me overboard. I would say the impact to us of the storm, and we're glad to participate in this council. I think it is a good best practice. It was about $100 million impact for those 5 days of power for us. We did have some rolling blackouts, so there were 13,081 of our members when MISO South gave the order to shed load that night. That Woodruff and Craighead both had to put some members in the dark. And so for us, you know, our mission is reliability, affordability, responsibility. We took both of those as pretty significant hits on our battleship. And so in true fashion, we really got together as a team, did very deep dive and lessons learned, as I'm sure many other organizations have. And we have made, so first I'll say the transmission and distribution system held up wonderfully. I could not believe there weren't more problems. I mean, every day I was looking for something to go wrong there and it didn't. So thankfully, our issue really stemmed from load in the state greatly exceeded generation capacity at that time. And then the gas constraints just caused the prices to go through the moon. And so that's really the issue we saw. So we put a lot of time and energy into that. One of the things we did is we pretty much revamped, rewrote, really looking at some of the lessons learned in Texas about how they did load sheds and really upgraded I'd say if knock on wood, if something like that happened again, we have a much more details around shedding of load with our members. We went through all of our power plants and looked for any weak areas. We didn't have a lot, but we did find that with all the constraints on natural gas on an event like that, liquid fuel is gold. And so we added capacity for liquid fuel. So we now have a week's supply of liquid fuel available at both of our dual fuel sites. So we can run a week before we need to start getting Daryl and the governor's staff on the phone to find truckers all over the state. Not that still isn't a best practice to be able to refuel while burning it, but we did that. And then we've done some work with our partners in the gas supply industry to change some of our gas contracts and some of that stuff around to give us, I think, better conditions in a strained environment in a winter storm like that. So I think that's 1 to 2 minutes. That's some substantive things we've done, and we look forward to hearing what others have done.
Hello, my name is Garrett Kent. I'm the energy manager for Commercial Metals Company. We have a steel mill in Magnolia, and that mill, along with 3 other mills in other states, were impacted by the Uri storm. We were impacted with OFOs, force majeure. We saw a measure of different things in different locations. Here, I think one thing we want to make sure we put an emphasis on is communication. That's communication to consumers at all levels and all sizes, from residential to industrial. I appreciate the Secretary bringing up communication already. But I think there's a lot of opportunity, and really look forward to the opportunity to speak our piece. Okay, thank you.
My name's Tommy Maxwell. I represent the Arkansas Forest and Paper Council. I'm not represent, I'm chairman. I'm not an attorney. So, you know, I don't have a lot to say other than our members suffered some during this time. But we have a formal statement. I mean, I'm glad to be here and glad to help out any way I can, any way we can.
I don't think we've got any formal statement other than the fact that some of our members that are large manufacturers, much as Mr. Garrett there says, that communications to us was important. Okay. There were some folks that had to cease operations for a period of time. Wasn't totally detrimental. And I do have to compliment whoever, some of the suppliers for these companies were very good about trying to work with them afterwards to try to make everybody as whole as possible. So that was a big compliment to all the utility providers in the state. And so thank you for that.
Personally, I would just add my own individual plant, which is not a paper mill, but it's a wood products plant. Actually, 2 of them. We suffered about a week's loss of production, but you know, we lived through it, and the communication was good. Certainly, that's always very important when you can improve communication. And so, thank you for the opportunity to be here.
I'm Travis Matlock. I represent the Arkansas Municipal Power Association. We represent 15 cities, municipally owned electrics throughout the state of Arkansas of varying sizes. The impacts of the winter storm to us were multiple different variations depending on the different type of power contract or the different zone that you were in. We had some cities that actually made money on it because of what their contracts are and what they do own as a facilities. We have some cities that were hit pretty hard. I am the electric utility director for the city of Bentonville, and we were actually hit the hardest. We didn't have any blackouts. We didn't lose power. We didn't have to shed any load. However, about a week after the storm, I got a $16 million bill that was sent to me that was on top of my normal bill. So the communication aspect is a big one to there of knowing what is coming, what's going down the road, and how we're going to be able to handle this stuff in the future. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. Daryl Brown with MISO. I'm the External Affairs Executive Director for South Region here on behalf of John Bear. Similar to Buddy, I came on about 2 years ago this month, actually, and my team says the exact same things. Daryl, since you got here, we've had COVID, 3 hurricanes, Uri. We don't know if we're going to keep you around or not, but hopefully they'll let me stay. As far as things we've done since that time, right, we've conducted our system restoration drills that we do normally with our members. We've had some winter readiness workshops. This is something we do annually. Something that we did in addition to those normal things during that winter readiness workshop is we conducted gas and coal fuel surveys, reported out those results, and we started weekly fuel requests to know where people are in terms of coal, natural gas, to see where gaps are. We participated in the Department of Energy's grid security exercise, better known as GridX. It's like a simulation of things that could happen. And so we did that exercise. We had 2 filings, which is the seasonal accreditation and availability-based accreditation rules. Went to a 4-season construct is what we're proposing, and then minimum capacity obligation to make sure resources are where they need to be when they need to be there. We also, and I encourage y'all to go and take a look at it, it's called Markets of the Future report that was published. It's talking about articulating the specific needs that will arise in MISO's plan, ensuring that everything's in place and for reliability purposes to operate the future fleet. We also, we also just filed our reliability imperative and long range transmission planning and cost allocation that was filed February 4th. So just recently, more to come on that one. And we got a little test drill, me and Andrew and some others a couple of weeks back with Storm Landon, got to practice a little bit. Fortunately, it was no uneventful, which is a good thing. Also, we have our MISO app that came about a week late, but it came right after Uri. If you haven't seen that app, similarly Entergy and others, that app is very helpful or useful in terms of communication. It gives you updates on a regular basis and tells you about stakeholder meetings. Thank you.
My name is Lene Falser, and I represent the Arkansas Propane Gas Association. Winter storms hit us a little differently. It wasn't nothing too bad. Our industry was pretty steady, did okay. We had a couple of issues where, we had some shortages. It was trouble. Our biggest problem was getting product to the midstream level. We have a limited number of resources, so we're looking at ways to help alleviate that should we face something like this again. The safety board recently passed a new rules change that'll help do that. And we trained all of our members on that this past summer, giving them the tools they need to start accessing those options. So we're here to learn, we're here to help and see, how we can prepare for the future so that we're even in a better position.
Hi, I'm Randy Zook, President and CEO of the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas. I'm here to listen and learn and try to find out some good news from all of you providers and folks that dealt with all these issues so we can communicate that to our members. Energy is obviously what drives American business and all of our, especially on the associated industry side of our organization. That includes nearly all the major manufacturers across the state, and many of them were impacted, some mildly so, and some a little bit more significantly. But we're always concerned about making sure that energy is available at a reasonable cost and 24 hours a day, I guess would be the right way to say that. So glad to be here. Looking forward to learning from you.
I'm Rodney Baker, and I'm the Executive Director for the Arkansas Independent Producers and Royalty Owners, APRO. And I did have the opportunity to testify at your meetings earlier last year. As mostly I represent producers, people who have pipes in the ground that pull oil and gas out of the ground. And if it doesn't come out of the ground because it's frozen or any other reason, then of course our folks don't get paid either, and that we don't want to be in that position anymore, and we want anybody else to be in that position. I think we were as surprised as everyone else with the impact of the storm last year. Our companies had people out all night during those storms trying to do what they could with the wells. Majority of the wells in Arkansas froze up. Many of the companies were putting 2 people in a truck because if they got out and got to a well and slipped off the road or something, they'd be there until a day or 2 probably later when somebody could get to them. Actually put, in many cases, if you know the terrain, some of these wells are in there, put their lives at risk, try to get out and do something to respond to this emergency. Not exactly sure what the answer is from our industry. We're here, like others, to learn and listen and try to contribute when we can. From the testimony we heard earlier, communication is going to be part of that. Probably some strategies on how we respond in some kind of organized fashion, from what I've heard previously. But we appreciate the chance to be here and I'm glad to be very much part of this program. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chad Kinsley with Black Hills Energy, and I'm the Vice President of Operations for our state of Arkansas for the company. And Some of the things we've done since last year, about to the day, we've certainly looked at the capacity of our system overall. Our system performed very well. We did have one outage, a significant outage in the Pea Ridge area, and we've completed a pipeline expansion to that community to serve the growing needs of that region in Northwest Arkansas. We've also completed several other capacity upgrades. So the storm really highlighted where we needed to shore up, the capacity of our system. We've also initiated additional long-range planning studies to look at additional storage assets. We own 2 storage reservoirs down around Ozark, and those perform flawlessly for us and were critical for us to help serve our customers. And so, we're working with engineering consultant firms to look if there's additional opportunities that are in the Arkoma Basin near our system for underground storage for natural gas. And we're also looking at our gas supply strategies and evaluating, what is the best strategy with the increased volatility and costs that we've seen for natural gas and the supply constraints during that period of time. So, but look forward to being part of this group, but I guess that's it.
Good afternoon. I'm John Bethel. I'm the Director of Public Affairs for Entergy Arkansas, and we're pleased to participate in the effort. And we, like other utilities, experienced some brief outages during the winter storm event. Those were the result of a MISO called upon load shed. And fortunately, the customers experienced outages of less than 40 minutes on average during that event. And so that was fortunate. We've continued to improve upon and build upon our communications with our customers. We offer a variety of media to notify customers of events. We use email, text message, calls, social media. So we make contact with our customers in a variety of ways to make sure they're informed as far as the status and what's happening. We participate in the various events that Mr. Brown described with MISO. We participate in the Grid X exercise. We benefited during the event from having a diverse generation portfolio. The whole state did, actually, and we in particularly did. And we continue to make investments in our generation portfolio, as well as our transmission and distribution networks, to make sure that those are able to provide reliable service and affordable service to our customers. And so we'll continue to do that. And we are prepared to offer our experience and input as a part of the working group.
Good afternoon. I'm AJ Gary. I'm the Director of the Arkansas Division of Emergency Management and State's Homeland Security Advisor. And our role is when we know that a storm, weather event is approaching Arkansas, we work real close with the Weather Service. We usually start having meetings maybe a day or two, sometimes longer if they can forecast that out. And we'll make a determination if we're going to put teams on standby for the State Emergency Operations Center, or if we will go ahead and activate the Emergency Operations Center. And we base that on the information that we have. When we're activated, our goal is to get the resources that are needed so that we can keep those lifelines open and going. You mentioned liquid fuel in the last big storm. We helped coordinate some of that to get those resources out there. That's the main part of what we do. Just to give you an example, this last storm that we had, we decided to go ahead and activate the State Emergency Operations Center because the roads were going to be bad. We had our team actually spend the night in their offices, work 12-hour shift, and they stayed there. So we spent 2 nights in the EOC making sure that we were available to assist on getting those resources. Our communications was mentioned a couple of times. When the State Emergency Operations Center is activated, we'll also have a joint information center So we will have public information officers from different state agencies that participate in that. So, we can assist in getting the word out to customers or whatever, and can work with y'all. We just quickly, when our emergency operations center is activated, the people that are in there, a lot of them are what we call emergency support functions. So they're from different state agencies. So we'll have somebody from Department of Transportation in the EOC. We'll have somebody for public safety, state police, and Department of Finance Administration, Health Department, many others. We have a total of 16 ESFs. So all of those people are in the Emergency Operations Center, and if there's a need comes in, we can work collectively to try to get those resources out. So for me, this meeting give us an opportunity to see what resources we may be missing that we can help with. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And we'll shift over to those of you on Zoom, and I'll probably just identify who you're representing. If we'll start with the Public Service Commission, and then we'll move down the list, and if that's okay.
Thank you. Can you all hear? Okay, thank you. I'm Ted Thomas, Chair of the Arkansas Public Service Commission. Our primary role is to regulate monopoly providers of utility service in Arkansas. Of course, they have assigned service territories that are geographic. What we've done, we've opened a docket to study utility operations in detail in terms of the what happened with respect to the winter storm. There are also other dockets pending regarding cost recovery. Our cost of service model generally provides that when costs are incurred to provide utility service, the utilities are able to recover those costs from their customers. A second thing I'm involved with is Southwest Power Pool asked me to chair their Improved Resource Availability Task Force, which is a stakeholder group that's been charged with the responsibility of implementing board recommendations regarding fuel availability and resource availability as a result of the winter storm. The RTOs, and when we've already heard from Daryl and we'll hear from SPP, they operate the system. The utilities own the system, but it's operated by the RTOs. So they're very important in this. They have a step-by-step process that runs from normal operations to what we call load shed, which is folks being compelled to turn off things because there's insufficient resources. Now, there's other times when the power goes off when a tornado hits. That's not the coordinated deal. That's a physical asset problem. But when we have to coordinate system balance and turn people off to maintain the system, it's the RTOs that do that. And so they're obviously communicating all the time, constantly, every day in normal and emergency situations with the utilities, and they have a step-by-step process. And a lot of what I think this council can do is, as that step-by-step process begins to take place, that this council can be a single point of communication from the RTOs to our state, and then this council can work to distribute that information to everybody that needs it. And when there's an emergency circumstance that we have to react to, then this council would be the ones that hear from the RTOs who run the system what the circumstances are, and then react to that. So I look forward to working with you all to set this thing up and take care of our folk. Well, one other thing I want to mention: the utilities, of course, they have a geographic service territory, and the RTOs do too. So we have MISO and SPP. MISO is primarily Entergy. SPP has SWEPCO, OG&E, and Empire on the western side of our state. Then we have 17 distribution electric cooperatives that are spread all over the state. So the ones more to the east are going to be in MISO, and the ones more to the west are going to be in SPP. So we have two entities that operate, and then our utilities are spread out too. And So I look forward to the conversation with you all and making sure we take care of our folks. Thank you.
All right, I wanted to ask, is there a representative from the Office of the Attorney General here? Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure we didn't miss you. Thank you.
I'm Clay Layson. I'm Assistant Attorney General with the Consumer Utilities Rate Advocacy Division at the AG's office. And we're excited to be, the AG is excited to have a seat at the table and to participate and to learn from this process. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that. We'll come back to Zoom now, I believe. I believe we've got Liberty Utilities also on Zoom. If you would care to make a few comments and introduction.
Certainly, and thank you for having us, and thank you for the opportunity to participate by Zoom this afternoon for those of us that are not in Little Rock. I appreciate it. My name is Kenneth Tillotson. I am the Director of Legal Services for Liberty Utilities, and I'm here on behalf of the President of our Central Region, Kevin Noblet, who could not attend today. But Liberty is the parent company of the Empire District Electric Company. We also operate in the state of Arkansas, Arkansas Water and Pine Bluff Water. Liberty has approximately 4,800 electric customers in Northwest Arkansas, about 180,000 total customers in Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma for our electric utility. I do want to thank the state of Arkansas, the governor, and the Department of Energy and Environment, as well as the Arkansas Public Service Commission, the Attorney General, for their leadership on this issue. We're happy to be invited and to participate in these meetings. Regarding Empire and the impact from the storm that we experienced, we did have a tremendous impact because of the natural gas prices. And we're currently in pending dockets at the Arkansas Public Service Commission to seek orders for the handling of those costs and how they will be recovered. We also had to shed load as a result of orders from the SPP during the storm that affected our customers in Northwest Arkansas. As a result of the storm, I would say we've taken a comprehensive review of all of our systems and our communications efforts and platforms. We feel like our communications methods served us well during the storm, but we are continuing to explore best practices and other ways to reach customers during similar events to advise them what's happening, what they're experiencing, the reasons that they're experiencing it. But again, thank you so much for the chance to participate today, and we look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
All right, then I think the next one I have here is Oklahoma Gas and Electric.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Sean Trosky with OG&E. I'm happy to be here. Really not too dissimilar from what other comments have been made this afternoon. I think the investments we made in around Fort Smith served us very well, served our customers very well. All of our plant sites generated megawatts every day. Nevertheless, there was a big financial burden coming out of Winter Storm Uri, and more specifically, the load shedding event. I think really challenged a lot of our planning exercises. Typically in this area of the country, you plan for those events during spring season, during storm season, or the summer cooling degree days when it's really extremely hot. But as we've noticed, we're seeing more and more of these winter storms, these severe weather events, and how you plan for that load shedding event gives us, reason to look deeper, and how we evaluate, those circuits that we would shed, what we do there. And then Chairman Thomas mentioned the Resource Availability Task Force, which I think is critical because we all were really demanding the same molecules of gas during that week there. So, addressing that issue is something of really paramount importance to us as well. So I'll turn it over from there.
Right, thank you so much. I believe we have Summit Utilities also on Zoom tonight or today.
Yes, hi. Thanks for having me. My name is Stacy Smith. And because some of you volunteered that you were relatively new, I will volunteer that myself. I've been with the utility space for just 2.5 years. I do public affairs for Summit. I work out of the Arkansas, Oklahoma Gas office in Fort Smith. And I contribute to both GR and PR to Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Colorado, and Maine. A milestone since last February, I certainly want to mention that Summit just closed on the CenterPoint acquisition. So as of January this year, we are rebranding the CenterPoint assets in both Arkansas, Oklahoma to Summit Utilities. So you'll be seeing a lot of that and hearing a lot of that. And many of you may be our new customers. So we're thrilled to have you. As far as the winter storm, we managed that through Arkansas, Oklahoma Gas. And given that we had operated in Fort Smith for some 60 years, our winter storm management and crisis plans were in tip-top shape. And we had just phenomenal support from the business community and the transport customers and the residents alike. So it couldn't have gone better for a really, really difficult situation. I'm surprised that none of you all mentioned the chickens. Again, being new to the utility space, I have never gotten so many crisis chicken calls in all my life. So that was a learning experience for me. And by golly, we saved those chickens. We kept them warm.
Well, thank you for doing that for sure. But I know we appreciate that input and also look forward to working with you representing CenterPoint as well, or historical experience with CenterPoint. So moving to Southwest Power Pool, we have a representative on Zoom. So.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thanks for having me. I'm Dustin Smith, Director of External Affairs and Stakeholder Relations at Southwest Power Pool. I'm happy to be participating today on behalf of our President and CEO, Barbara Sugg. As Chairman Thomas already indicated, I need to take him on the road with me everywhere I go because he did a much briefer and better job of kind of summarizing Southwest Power Pool and MISO's responsibilities in events like this. We're responsible for maintaining bulk electric grid reliability. We do that across a 14-state footprint that includes parts of Arkansas, and in coordination with our electric utility members. So we share Arkansas with MISO, but the last February's event really put SPP through the most challenging, operationally challenging event in its 80-year history. We were founded in 1941 and have never experienced a situation quite like that before because of the record low temperatures across our entire footprint. The bulk electric, the demand on the system was higher than one would expect during the winter. But fortunately, we were able to maintain reliability across our footprint with 2 short exceptions. Not to make light of those exceptions, but fortunately there were only 2 for a total of about 4 hours during that event. Following that event, our board of directors directed us to perform a comprehensive review, looking at how SPP performed, how our members performed with us throughout that event. So 5 teams and several hundred of our stakeholders, including state regulators from across our footprint, conducted an in-depth analysis and published a very lengthy report on that, and it's available on the SPP website. I may even drop a link to it in the chat for those of you who are on the Zoom for easy access if you had trouble sleeping, because it's a report drafted in some part by engineers. So good luck. But to summarize it for you, there were 22 recommendations that were either actions, policy changes, or assessments that the board ultimately approved. And those were related to fuel assurance, resource planning and availability, emergency response and communication. So we have begun to work on those recommendations. Chairman Thomas already indicated the improved resource availability task force, which he's chairing, will seek to evaluate and implement those very critical resource availability issues. So we're excited about that work, and we look forward to continuing to work on improving overall communication and response in these types of events in the future. So thank you.
And now I'll shift over to representative from the Arkansas Electric Energy Consumers.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Patty Lawson. I'm with Lanxess Corporation. Today I'm here in the capacity as chairman of the board for the AEEC. We are an incorporated trade association that represents the interest of several large electricity users in the state of Arkansas. I would say today that on behalf of our board and our membership, that we are very excited to be a part of this council, to be able to participate in the dialogue, the learnings, and things that we can take back to our membership and learn with. I think there's one thing I could say from the events last year was to emphasize the benefits of the interruptible tariffs, which especially proved useful during last year's events. So we, again, thankful to be here, appreciate being a part of the council, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
I think I believe I've touched on each of our committees that are represented today. I think, is there anyone else in the room representing one of our committee members that I missed? Either in person or in Zoom? Okay. Well, with that, we'll go on and move into the agenda. Thank you for all these updates. As I mentioned, we will try to capture this in a transfer. When I see that Southwest Power Pool has already reached out and shared some information through a link, and I appreciate that. That's the kind of communication and clearinghouse we want this council to become. So, and I'll explain some of that as we go forward. But as we move through the agenda item, I'd like to highlight the executive order itself, because I think it was well thought through by the governor's office, and want to ask you to look at it. I believe you have a copy in front of you. This is a really brief overview, and the roles of the committee are fairly succinct, so it won't take very long to go through it, but I want to make sure that we all understand why we're here and what we can do and begin to do beginning with this meeting today. So the duties and operations of the council are highlighted really in the parentheticals 2 to 5, I mean, including your appointment or the representation as it's called out for. But first, it calls for an annual meeting. And I've kind of coined the word forum, and we'll talk about that as we go forward, but a meeting for purposes of bringing together regulators and energy stakeholders for technical and policy discussions is one of the purposes. And I think, at least in talking to others that are participating or even in the formation of the council, it seemed that we might have a lot of conversation around electric, and we might have a lot of conversation about gas, and we might have a lot of conversation about propane, and perhaps there's other resources that we haven't even clearly identified yet, but it's good that we come together at times, because we know there's synergies among that utility and energy sector, and I know the governor's interested in making sure that we are all of the above, and making sure that we're affordable and reliable in whatever is produced and consumed in Arkansas. So with that, I'll mention that there may be others that we need to bring in the fold, so we can talk about that as we go through some of these meetings and forums. I'm sure that would be something we can open up as we need to. Secondly, the members of the committee are called to work together in the development of educational materials on best practices regarding preparedness and communication. And I know I've heard from some of you even today, or we've all heard from you today of some of the actions you've already taken. So thank you for that. We appreciate that. I know it's hard when you're a consumer and things are happening and to know really what to do or who to call. And I know some of the industries were reaching out to the governor directly. They were reaching out to me. They were reaching out to Chairman Thomas in that last ice storm without really a process. And so part of it is to help us all at least kind of have the same page and share that process so that there's an outlet and a place for people to come to identify their issue, but also to get answers on a timely basis. So appreciate that. And then obviously the communication to the consumer during those rollouts were real important too. Since I was one of the first houses to be rolled out on, I always give Entergy a hard time on that. So just making sure that those consumers get that notice on the front end, so that helps them to know it's not something they're going to have to hopefully endure for an extended period of time, or a mechanical failure causing it. And then lastly, I think it directs E&E. You've heard a lot about energy environment today, and I'm very proud of our department and how it stood up and represents a kind of a new transformative way of talking about energy and environment in Arkansas. But we will host meetings. While we appreciate the host site here, this is a very great facility, and I think it accommodates this kind of conversation. We also have a lovely facility in North Little Rock ourselves that works well, but we may call on members of the council to even consider being guest host, if you don't mind, as we go forward. And I know we don't expect a lot of meetings, but I think it's also helpful for us to be in each other's homes, if you will, and get to know each other in that format. So, but we will position educational materials and links on our E&E website or through a common forum. We're actually looking to create a forum that will be accessible without having to navigate necessarily our E&E website, which we're still working on, to be frank with you. So, but we do have some discussions on that to accomplish that joint development of educational materials specifically on preparedness and communications, and any other reports that you feel is pertinent. Our E&E staff, as I mentioned, have worked with the Department of Transformation Division of Information Services already. They're developing a collaboration tool for this council, or I guess in the form of a Teams group. I'm not the technology whiz on this side of things, so I will defer perhaps if you have questions. I know Tricia Treese can answer them in the back of the room, but that Teams group will act as an information clearinghouse and a way for us to share information or collect links, and then that information, once it's collected, we'll put on a single site, and it'll be transparent to the public, as well as, you know, while the public won't be offering information, they'll have access to that information. So there'll be administrative rights as a council member to be able to offer materials, and so you can approve what goes on that site, but then the public will have access to those materials that you feel are pertinent or helpful for education purposes. So that's kind of the initial vision. Obviously, we'd like to get some council input on that as we go forward, and we always work for improvement. So that's thing. What you will see in moving that forward is a follow-up to this meeting. We'll reach out to you as council members with a form for you to fill out the information that we need to, one, give your organization the administrative rights to be able to put links or post information, but just so we know who that contact person is you choose to be your contact to help us collect that data or information or links, as I said. So that'll come forward with some addition, and then also some additional ideas and formats. So I've kind of got ahead of myself on that, but I wanted to make sure that you knew we would reach out to you for that information to be, and then training or whatever necessary to get you connected in that. But so those are really the three primary duties of the committee or council. I keep changing the word, but it's a council. So as we move forward, I've identified some next steps that we really felt like this discussion should be more open, because it is the council's choice on how we move forward. I would, as we look at the call for meetings, our internal discussions, I would like to make a recommendation that we consider this council work to host an Arkansas Energy Forum, perhaps in mid-October or sometime fall prior to the winter storm events that occur. We're here in February at almost the anniversary of the ice storm, but we want to be ahead of the next one, right? With the information. So we're thinking something about an energy forum in mid-October where we can have some specific and more time for detailed presentations on some of the work that's been done that I've heard about today, and share even beyond this member of the council. Perhaps other stakeholders would come in. I know Texas has taken a number of measures due to the extreme impacts they had. Perhaps not some of those measures not appropriate for Arkansas, obviously, but they've taken some efforts to ready their systems, and so there may be some. We've had contacts from folks in Texas and Oklahoma who we work closely with on these kind of issues. So we might want to hear on industries' use of the human needs affidavits. I know in Texas, they've seen a significant increase of human needs affidavits that were filed, particularly with critical utilities, particularly the natural gas utilities, so that they know that they have that the utilities are aware of their their human needs or their requirements should a resource become constrained or limited in supply. And so I know that may be something we want to see, is how is Arkansas businesses and industry, I know we've got some, are they aware of that process, and are they adopting that process and making sure that that information is updated on an annual basis? We could discuss legislative or regulatory proposals that might be relevant in this forum, energy resource development, some energy storage investments that might be going on. I know we also are chairing an infrastructure committee, so there's a lot of funds that are coming in that may support some of the storage. And as we look at our energy portfolio, some of that may shift. So we want to make sure that we are in tune on that. Of course, our response plans, as you mentioned, Director Gary, and then just any kind of advanced public notification tools that are helpful, or other topics. So that's kind of the concept that I was thinking about in this forum. So it would also be a chance to hopefully roll out this website or this clearinghouse where people could access the information, and we'll talk about that. But that was the meetings. I think that would kind of stand it, although we're having this meeting, I think having another meeting this year would be appropriate to be ready for 2022. Plus, that's a transition year for us, so we want to make sure that nothing gets dropped in the process. As I mentioned, after this meeting, we would have the staff will be sending you an email through our email address. You've seen that that's been established to fully operationalize. What I mentioned was our collaboration tool, getting key contact information. We have some of your information already. If you can offer others, as I have, to support your work on that, to share documents or links to resources. We would compile that. Our goal for our staff is to have a test site available in late summer where we can roll it out to the council, where y'all can look at what's out there and let you evaluate that before it's made public, and see if there's any additions or subtractions that you want to make before we actually open that site up. And then the goal would be to actually announce the release of that site at this Energy Resource Forum in the fall, or whatever we decide to host. And I'm not going to presume this is the wish of the council, but those are the thinkings I have around next steps. At this point, I'll tease out a little bit that future actions may include adding like a drill on the back end of the energy forum, where we actually work through the tool or work through a process on how we respond. How would we drill a scenario where we were all of a sudden facing another 100-year event like we did, and how would we assure that? And I know we've got some experts at doing those kind of preparation drills in the committee, or council, but that may not be for this first year, but I think it might be helpful going forward that we have at least kind of run through some kind of at least tabletop exercise on what that looks like. But anyway, and I guess at this point, I would just open the mic up to discussion from the council, or either of my designees that are here, I know Shane or Larry, if anyone would like to speak up at this point or be recognized to talk about those suggestions or any new suggestions that you might have or comments you have on how this council can be effective in our carrying out our duties as we've been assigned. So it looks like Chairman Thomas has his hand raised on Zoom, so we'll go ahead and shift to him first.
I like the proposal. There's one coordination thing you have to do the tabletop, because I know SPP wants to do that annually, where they're basically testing their communications protocols as these things begin to happen. So if that were to happen as part of the meeting and we wanted to participate with the entire footprint, then that date would have to be coordinated. Of course, we wouldn't necessarily have to do it every year, but I think it would be great for when SPP is testing their communications protocols to us, that we test the protocols that we develop that go out to the folks here. A second thing, I should have said this in the initial deal, I focused on electric, and we also had a gas issue. A human needs tariff is provided for in a FERC tariff. So it's beyond our jurisdiction, and it doesn't really have standards of priority. It seems like it was almost a first come, first serve, and I don't know what have happened had they had not been able to get gas to everybody. And it's hard because we don't have jurisdiction, and their system is also pressurized. The gas can't come out the back end of it if you don't put it in the front end of it. And when it freezes, it's just not coming in. And trying to impose a priority system through a FERC tariff is challenging. In gas, they have what we call transportation, and in distribution, most of our problems are on the transportation side of the gas, which is where the FERC jurisdiction is. But we do have gas issues also that we need to study. So thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Chairman Thomas, as we go forward into these forums to better understand that. I know that some of the businesses also had equipment that was at risk, and, significant investment at risk if gas had been disrupted or disrupted for any length of time. So those are the things that while a human need is, obviously we want to keep our utilities running and our hospitals running and, our citizens in safe, away from harm. We also know that there's also financial harm that can come, that is also a human needs assessment if it affects ultimate long-term employment of those folks, or production of goods and services in the state. So that's a great point. Does anyone else have a thought or comment or thumbs up? Do you have one? Oh,
I have one. During the event, well, I guess through my life, having spent 20 years in the military and probably some others in here, in dealing with scaling up quickly for things, communications is key. And it's really about, in the Department of Emergency Management, it's knowing what resources are available. Sometimes you can sit in your office and you don't really know. And during this event, I'll give a lot of credit to Daryl from MISO, probably from some of his background as well, pulled together a call where we all got on the phone and talked through some things, and it made a difference. I say that the cost to cooperative members was $100 million, but had we not burnt liquid fuel, that would have been about $135 million. So that diesel fuel was worth $35 million. And so every truckload that was showing up was an hour of power for Fitzhugh, and getting the coordination to get the roads plowed, to get the stuff, to know what was out there in the state highway patrol, and just make sure everybody was aware. And I think a part of this group would be, I don't know, I'm also on the ESCCC at the national level. There's the Electric Subsector Coordinating Council for hurricanes and things like that. One of the things I saw that group learn is, when do you call a meeting? So everyone was very, very used to calling a meeting during hurricanes, because that's what the electric industry does. But what about wildfires? What about these other things? And so they weren't calling these groups together until all of a sudden somebody, and like there was a big nor'easter up in the Northeast. Well, they just assumed they were good at storms, so they didn't call the council together. So really they had to set some rules around, when do we call this big, powerful body together to do all these things, so everybody knows what to expect. And I would say for this group, that would probably be good for us to say, if another Storm Uri happens, or maybe it's a significant summer event or a other type event, what would be the rules around which a group or subset of this group gets together? Because I think there's great power in all the great minds coming together to know what resources are out there, to get those words out there, so the consumers can understand that I'm paying $3,000 a megawatt right now. So this is one of those ones, if you don't got to use it, don't kind of thing. I just setting those ground rules, I think would be very good for us.
That's great, Tricia. Hopefully we can capture that comment. Yeah, and I think on the natural gas side, just because we were in the discussions on that, obviously in Arkansas, we're net exporter in natural gas. So some of the gas that did get out of production wells in Arkansas did leave Arkansas while we were relying on the Texas supplies and Oklahoma supplies that were also freezing up. And so, I mean, it's not just a one state solution on these resources. So I was in consulting with my counterpart in Oklahoma during the storm. I was also communicating with Texas. So, but we could improve that. I don't know that we got the specific information to project that to the companies as well as I would have liked at that time. So those are things that I think we can obviously work on. Did you have something, John? Or, oh, I'm sorry. There's Director Gary has his mic on.
Yeah, just real quick, your comment on the calls, the coordination. Maybe something similar. I know when we're expecting an event or even when an event happens, we'll have a coordination call with all of our county emergency managers and there's some private sector people on there, and we may have 100 and something people on that call. But there's a weather briefing on that, and we kind of walk through it. Later on daily, we'll have a leadership call with just our leadership coordinating what's the next step. What are we looking at 2 days down the road? What do we need to focus on now to make sure that we can meet that? So I guess hearing what you're saying, what you asked, maybe a coordination call with this council at some point, either before or even during an event to understand those resources.
I'm saying it might add value. I mean, we did that as co-ops. And so every morning I would put out State of the Union to the 17 retail distribution co-ops. And every evening I would put one out. We were meeting with Daryl's team twice a day. We didn't have a meeting set up with SPP. I promise you in the future, we'll do the same there. But that's a lot of individual meetings, but sometimes you kind of wish that the other person was on the phone. And I'm just saying there might be a time where there would be once a day or something where a larger group gets together to kind of, here's what's going on and what's needed or not needed.
That's a great idea. And I know, I believe Chairman Thomas mentioned, or someone mentioned it earlier, and in the task force, we do appreciate the RTOs, the fact that we have both MISO and SPP. We're blessed to have your offices here. We're blessed to be part of the southern, part of those regional transportation networks, but we know that you made efforts to share your capacities across those, what could be hard lines became very soft lines, and that benefited Arkansas greatly. So that was recognized, and to the extent that that's allowable and legal, we encourage that flexibility. So thank you so much for that. I see a mic on now.
Yeah, I'd also encourage us to potentially talk to those, I guess those areas such as New Orleans, or I know in Mississippi from my experiences, those utilities down that way. Their practices, best practices in terms of how they manage communication during those hurricane events. There's a lot of lessons learned that they've done over the years. A lot of things that I was doing that day came from those learnings. They actually had what they call like a TOC, an operating center, right? Where you had representation of everybody that was in this room. It was some representative where everybody was in one room, not necessarily the CEO, of course, but it would be somebody from that company, so that at any time, everybody was accessible. You could get answers right away. And everybody knew that there was like there's a secondary role for that person. They knew to show up there to be able to communicate back, bi-directional, I should say. So there's something to think about that, is just setting that up when it's a major event.
It'd be great to get more information on how, and I'm sure that's something we can do. in addition to just having these online resources that people might Google and try to find, because they don't know who to call, except they know to call the governor, they know to call their representative, and they know to call their county judges sometimes, but sometimes those folks need to know who they can reach out to with a concern. And I think that's their goal, is just to know who to call. But I appreciate that. So that would be great. Do we have any mics? We do. Okay.
With the municipal powers and a lot of us being locally regulated in various sizes, sometimes we kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit, but we do have some members that do have assets that may be helpful in future plannings. And so being able to get that information out there to the two different groups and to everybody else at this table, it could be helpful to be able to get just, again, more information on the table for everybody else to be able to use. We just appreciate having a seat at the table.
That's great. And I know I don't have Kevin Fowler, who handles our propane part of I think he was on the Zoom call for a moment, but he is head of our liquefied petroleum gas board, which is our propane regulatory arm. But I know that their industry is somewhat unique in terms of the distribution and the transportation and things that come up as we look at rural Arkansas and the need to get propane, and the clearing highways and all those emergency response things are critical to keep those trucks delivered. And ideally, people would buy it ahead of time, but sometimes that can't happen either. So, but again, back to the forum might at least be a way to remind people this is the time to get your propane tank full. This is the time to, or actually summer is probably the better time, right? Because the costs are cheaper, but to at least verify you've got a good supply going into the next few months, and because it may not be available or may not be possible to get that propane tank full when you need it. So those are the things that I'd like to think about. I don't know if mid-October, I was trying to avoid in some ways it's good to be right into December, but sometimes we do have inclement weather in December. So and we're in holiday season at that point. So I thought, I don't know if y'all are y'all interested in this forum and perhaps something would mid-October work for you, or early November or something like that?
I'd say your your October timeframe probably makes sense, just from a standpoint of being prepared, because I think the biggest role for this council is really to make sure that the information is known, and then you can access that information, in the event of an actual emergency event. And so I think doing it ahead of time is a good idea. Then you're prepared, you know how to act in the event that something's necessary. And from an electric utility, gas utility information standpoint, we've got a good coordination as a part of the state emergency plan with Adam through the Public Service Commission. So we're able to keep the state government, I know, and county governments informed kind of on the status of what things are in the event of a weather event or another emergency. And so kind of leverage those opportunities as well.
Thank you, John. Chairman Thomas.
On mute.
I think you're on mute, Chairman Thomas.
Sorry about that. I should know how to do that by now, 2 years into a freaking pandemic.
I promise I didn't mute you.
No, I know you didn't. I saw my little red thing, which I should look for to begin with. But SPP's timing is based on that same thing. They want to do it before the winter so they can prepare. So, but if our thing is going to be coordinated with theirs, the date's got to match. Now, we don't have to do that, but we're taking that off the table if the dates are different. So, but they're looking at that same thing. We want to prepare before the winter, close enough to it that it's preparation. But, you having a meeting after the storm wouldn't be very good, right?
Did you say that was Southwest Power Pool?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I know part of their communications plan is to do, and I'm not sure exactly what MISA is doing on that, but if we wanted to participate in their larger group thing, the date's got to be coordinated. We don't necessarily have to do it that way or do it that way every time.
I believe in not duplicating and being efficient. So, and I know all of you are valuable resources and have a lot of demands on your time. So I believe Southwest Power Pool has some comments. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I would add that in response to last year's event and in response to the recommendations that I mentioned earlier, we are scheduled to begin meeting with an emergency communications user forum, and that's open to the public, anybody who wants to participate in those meetings. I can share that information with y'all if you're interested, but it's in those meetings moving forward that will determine the structure and the timing of our more public tests of our emergency communication procedures that Chairman Thomas referenced. So we are in agreement to be as broad and inclusive as possible, especially with this council. But it will take some coordination. And so, Secretary, I think you mentioned maybe not this year, but maybe in future years, and that might be more realistic. But I guess we'll just see kind of where we end up as we kind of work out those logistics.
Right. I was thinking it might be step two. Obviously creating the first forum, I think will be helpful. That will be, and then also getting this tool rolled out will be helpful, I think, to folks. And then we can work toward, perhaps by then you'll have clarity on your process and where we can coordinate either with MISO or Southwest Power Pool to make sure that we time that and either collaborate on your process or create our own as need be, just if that makes sense. Okay, that's good.
Makes sense.
If somebody moves faster than that, we're all in. But, anyway.
Hey, one other thing I would say you should consider is adding maybe the mayor's office to this list. We talked about clearing roads a lot, given like this, even a small one here recently that we had, just getting our operators from the hotel, Embassy Suites, to our office, just that little hill there. Just if we could coordinate that being cleared automatically, because that's an important, those are important personnel to make sure are there. So those types of things and identifying, such as clearing roads to certain generation sites. I think we need to identify those places that are critical and coordinate that with the city, state troopers office, you name it. So that's a number one priority because, it's key to keeping the lights on. As simple as that seems, that's a 1 mile stretch. Coordinating that is.
It's a very difficult
I just happen to know the mayor, but otherwise.
Because it does seem like that the organization, our role from the proclamation is to make sure that we're gathering information and educating, not as much as creating a separate emergency response organization, but it's to make sure that we're all informed and who to call when it happens. You're not duplicating what MISO or SPP or ADAM are already doing. It's just to make sure that we're and the people that need to know are aware and having a good exchange of information. So the forum is a real good, I think, idea and opportunity to do that and to keep this group talking.
Okay, well, I've got 2 hands raised. I'm going to turn to Director Bingle first, and then we'll go back to you, Chairman Thomas.
First of all, get off on mute. And then the picture is not where I'm at, but it's better than a blank wall. So it's a pretty location anyway. Listening to everybody, I want to apologize for not being there in person. I was planning to, but some personal issues came up, I wasn't able to. But listening to all the comments and all the various preparations that many of the entities have made, a lot of the communications that already exist, systems. One of the things that we all struggle with, I think, as a general public, is knowing where to go to find things. The government is a fairly expansive organization. There's so many locations to go find information. As you know, when we were during that storm, Oil and Gas Commission was getting calls about my power was turned off, my gas was turned off. They view oil and gas as anything wrong with their heat, that they would call us. We just regulate the production, not the distribution. So we have to turn that those calls over. It's hard to believe that so many folks who get a power bill would not know where to call to talk about their particular issue. So I view the toolkit that's part of the, and we call it the toolkit, but it's a preparation general information web page that could be basically 4 components to it. One is, general information just for the public to understand the power sector, how it's even created, what an RTO is, definitions, just for folks to understand how their power gets to them, how it's generated, who the power companies are, just basic information for the general public to understand why things happen when there's an outage. And then 2, a toolkit for users, industrial users, residential users, what to prepare for, how to prepare for outages, what to do ahead of time, where you call, who your power company is, links to those call-in centers that everybody has, but sometimes locating them is difficult for folks. And then a third component is a communications component where like MISO's application is a link, and other links are there rounding up all the information that exists already and just putting it in one spot for folks to go through and find what they're looking for. And then I think the fourth component of the web page we're talking about would be just that ongoing Zoom or Teams component where we could have regular meetings, like I think John Bethel talked about, where a notice could go out and there could be a Zoom call through that forum for whatever issue may be coming up, future storm or weather conditions or whatever. And there's where you could also have invite folks, as we were just talking about, to go clear the roads. We got to remember to invite the mayor or whatever, the county road commissioner to do those various things. So you can make the web page informational as a static site, and then a ongoing communications for a spur of the moment, and then a toolkit for how people to prepare. If nothing else, that we generate that'll be a huge resource for folks to go find anything they want to find in one spot.
Thank you, Director Ringel. I agree. I think those are good 4 components that we would want to focus on, and maybe we can even make an app for that, as they say. But as MISO has done, and I know DEQ has an app, which we might can expand and make it a any app that would be, that where we can advertise people to sign on and get notices. But I know all of you have your apps, and your customers do benefit from that. Notification, real-time notifications are obviously beneficial. So I believe Chairman Thomas, or were you third, Director Bingle? I see your hand still raised.
Yes.
Okay.
Trying to figure out.
Go ahead, Chairman Thomas. Sorry, do you want to, Director Bingle? Oh, he's muted now.
No, I was just trying to figure out how to turn the raised hand off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a trick. Chairman Thomas.
I wanted to emphasize Daryl's point about a correlated risk, like with this road thing. We need to identify all the correlated risks like that and have some way to deal with them. If you don't do that, you get cascading risks. And they had some of that in Texas, where they would, to shut off the power, they would shut off the power to a gas compressor, which would reduce the gas, which would compound their power problem. And so we need to figure out the risks that are correlated and think about them before they're happening and have some plan to deal with them. That would be great for this council to do that. Thank you.
I think we have.
Yes, ma'am. In talking about the toolkit or a possible dashboard and sharing communication for consumers, I also think they're kind of they're 2 separate lanes, but they can be together as both safety and economic decisions that need to be made. On the safety side, whether it's a weather update looking 5 days or 3 days out of green, yellow, red, but also on the economic side, that's a lot more in the actual event of whether it is a push notification or if it is on that dashboard that also let consumers know that the gas daily price is 10x what it was first of month IMAX, something to give them a better idea where that is. Also, quite a bit of the consumers have these utilities, but they also have third-party marketers. And if those third-party marketers could have access to the dashboard as well to say whether it's an OFO order, whether there is some form of force majeure or any kind of warnings that they have put, it's just I think that's another level that needs to be added on the toolbox.
Thank you. We'll capture those things. I know we have several of our committee members or council members are, I think we're nearing the end of the hour and a half we scheduled, so we appreciate all the time that you committed to today. I don't want to cut off any conversation, but we will be reaching out to you for additional ideas and through this collaboration tool or toolkit or whatever we want to call it going forward. And I appreciate your time today. Thank you. I believe this meeting's been very helpful to me, and I thank you. Hopefully you have the same result for your own planning purposes. So with that, I'll I guess consider the meeting closed for this point, and we'll be in touch as we go forward about future discussions. So thank you so much.
Grab the gavel if you want.
Oh boy.
Thank you.